Well, here's an interesting little tidbit concerning Spider-Man, and this is something Mikey Sutton discussed on his site about the character of Ned Leeds in the MCU Spider-Man stories, and is played by the actor Jacob. Is it Battledon or Batalon? I don't know. Maybe Battle, but I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm getting it wrong. We'll call him Jacob. But anyway, recently, he was just the chubby sidekick to Peter Parker. They were best buds. And, well, he's not chubby anymore. He's lost a lot of weight. And it looks like he might not have just lost weight, but got in shape, too. And it got him to wondering, will he follow the path of Ned Leeds being Hobgoblin? Now, it's a complicated story, and I'll get into it. But that could be the case. So he said he reached out to a reliable source, and the source said that there had been talks for him to be Hobgoblin, and that he says, "Oh, the clues have been there in plain sight." I don't know. I mean, he's there, and he's he's taken the place of Harry Osborn in the Spider-Man story. Ned Leeds was not Peter's buddy at high school. In fact, Ned Leeds was much older than Peter. And the story happened that Peter's first love or girlfriend that he wanted to love was Betty Brant, J. Jonah Jameson's secretary at the Daily Bugle. And they had a flirtation, a little romance there, and it was possible that she would have been his girlfriend and all that. But he kept running off to be Spider-Man, and so it wouldn't work out. So then here comes Ned Leeds, who's had the hots for Betty, and eventually proposed to her, and they get married. And that was the end of that for Peter Parker. And he moved on. Of course, there was Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy and all that. So that was the introduction of Ned Leeds, and he was a reporter at the Daily Bugle. Later on, after the Green Goblin had died, yes, Norman Osborn died. He was dead for a couple of decades. And interestingly enough, he was probably a more interesting character dead than he was alive. But the Green Goblin is the main big villain, so of course there were other people. Harry Osborn became the Green Goblin, and then his psychiatrist became the Green Goblin. And then they did this cool thing in the 80s where this mysterious character, you didn't know who he was always in shadow, found one of the Green Goblin's old hideouts and got all his equipment and his secret diaries or journals or what have you, and had all the secrets that Norman Osborn knew and all that. And he became the Hobgoblin. Instead of calling himself another Green Goblin, he became Hobgoblin. And so this was it was a cool mystery. It was well done and set up and everything. This was by Roger Stern. And then, I don't know, he left the book, and then Tom DeFalco came in. And he carried it on pretty good, too. They kept teasing it, and then I don't know what happened. It was all in a flashback. They decided to reveal that it was Ned Leeds had been the Hobgoblin, and that he had been murdered by assassins. So he got strangled by these assassins, and all of that. And I don't know. It was a sloppy way to do the reveal. And then that was it. And then another villain who called himself Jack-o'-lantern took over the Hobgoblin name and everything in the hopes that that would give him better business as a supervillain for hire type deal. And then the Hobgoblin just kind of spiraled down and became kind of a joke, really, after that. And then Roger Stern came back in and said, no, it was never Ned Leeds. And I was like, what? So then he did this series, Hobgoblin Lives. And so the original Hobgoblin comes back after kind of just retiring a bit, and took back over the name, and then it's revealed who he was. Well, he was a character named Roderick Kingsley. And his introduction was just kind of brief, really. I actually liked the idea of Ned Leeds being the identity all along, and that he had this, personal, relationship to Peter Parker's life in the way Norman Osborn sort of did. The Norman Osborn being Harry's father, here Ned Leeds being Betty's husband, that sort of thing, and a co-worker of Peter's. But that wasn't the story. He kind of rewrote it to where Ned Leeds had tracked down the Hobgoblin and figured out where he was, and the Hobgoblin captured him, brainwashed him, and convinced him that he was the Hobgoblin. So in some instances, he was posing as the Hobgoblin under the mind control. And it also fit in with the story because Ned's marriage with Betty was falling apart, and she ended up having an affair with Flash Thompson and all this stuff. And so it did fit the way he put it in there. And that was the sad story of Ned Leeds, where he was forced to do all of this. And it's more complicated, involved like the character of the Rose and all that sort of stuff. And then he dies, and that was that. Meanwhile, Roderick Kingsley gets revealed, and now that's the official deal. He's Hobgoblin. He went to prison, and he gets out. He's going to be Hobgoblin here and there. Then there was another Hobgoblin. It doesn't matter. But that was the story. So Roderick Kingsley was this fashion mogul. Had a relationship somewhat with Mary Jane because she was into modeling and all that kind of thing. But and then how it did it was shown that he was kind of like he was blackmailed into helping Hobgoblin in a lot of scenes. So how could he be the Hobgoblin? Well, he had a twin brother. Oh no, that I didn't care much for that. But with the Ned Leeds story about how he figured that out, that was pretty good. And it stood to reason because in the early days of Hobgoblin, he did brainwash another guy named Lefty Donovan to stand in for him. So he was experimenting on him to test to see if the Goblin super strength formula worked and all that sort of stuff. So that's how that played out. In the cartoon series, they kind of did the Goblin story in reverse, where I think they just went ahead with Macandale, the jack-o'-lantern identity, as being Hobgoblin. But Hobgoblin came first, and then the Green Goblin came after him. It was Norman Osborn and all that. But I did like the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. They did a lot of cool stuff in it. But I guess that's just because Hobgoblin was the more popular villain at the time. They decided to go with him first. But that's how they did it like that. So here, I think they just want the heartbreak for Peter Parker that his best friend becomes his enemy. And that did happen between him and Harry Osborn. Harry became a drug addict, and then, of course, the death of his father pushes him over the edge, and then he decides in a drug-induced rage to become the Green Goblin. Plus, he's mad at Peter because Peter ends up with Mary Jane, and he doesn't. Here, it's Betty Brant. Now, I don't know that that's part of the thing about how they weave this into the story. There doesn't seem to be any interest between Peter and Betty. He's already in love with Zendaya's character, MJ, and that's all set. Plus, is there time to give this the storytelling details it needs? And I think this would have to mean they intend on a Spider-Man 4 for this story to play out. So events might occur in Spider-Man 3 that's going to really lay the seeds that turns Ned against him. My guess is it's quite possibly something happens where he saves MJ at the expense of Betty, and this really and then Ned's you let her die, and it destroys his world and all this sort of thing. I don't know. Other clues is that, could he be an alternate universe version? That would be kind of, I don't know. So, that would be kind of it. That would be one of the elements. It's totally not the story that it happened and everything, but it would be one of those elements of classic Spider-Man, of sort of soap opera elements that, breaks his heart and ruins him and a bit humbles him and whatnot. And might actually be an improvement. I have not liked the Spider-Man movies. They're so far removed from the Spider-Man story. Just the whole presentation of him is just being this, fame obsessed a-hole, really. I mean, because that's basically his motivation, is he just wants to be a superhero like his celebrity idols of, Iron Man and Captain America and stuff like that. And that's not good. He had very deep rooted reasons, albeit mostly guilt at the death of Uncle Ben, but Uncle Ben plays no role in this whatsoever. And so his motivation is not there. It's just, wow, being a superhero would be cool. But yeah, I guess a little too late to fix that now. But this sort of storyline could be a helpful thing. I just don't know that they had the time. My guess is that, and it does go into this, that it would have to be something after Spider-Man 3. So Spider-Man 3 could probably have some elements in there. Maybe poor Betty doesn't survive. I don't know. And Spider-Man 4 would be a development of Hobgoblin. So, I don't know. We'll just have to see. But he certainly is in shape now to be a formidable supervillain, should this be the case of where he's going. Now, of course, getting in shape is always a good thing, and he said, look, I need to do this, and he did, but it could fit in with the overall narrative if they wish to pursue that, and they have the time and the contracts and everything to get another Spider-Man movie under the MCU banner. And that'll all fit. As for, he's just suddenly going to be in shape in the next movie. Well, I suppose they could use some CGI to keep him fat for a while and then feel he got into shape. Maybe, I don't know. But, so yeah, it is interesting, and that might be something they would like to pursue. And I think it would probably, for all intents and purposes, would be a good idea. Even though, unfortunately, it's not the real Hobgoblin story, which bums me out. And I guess the closest thing we got to the overall Green Goblin story was Sam Raimi's movie. And it was a terrible Green Goblin costume, but I guess that's as good as the Amazing Spider-Man version was just not even worth mentioning. It was so bad. So I guess that's as good as it's going to get. All right. Thank you for watching and listening. Why not like and subscribe and check out that link description below. That'll take you to my mini stores and have plenty of goodies for you. Hats, mugs, stickers, posters, all that goody stuff. Plus, you can head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book Night Night. Oh, yeah. Plus, you can also catch my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, over at radiomisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on my channel at BitChute. That's the Mr Nailsin channel on BitChute.com.